Welcome to the Traveling Professors. I'm Professor Bob.
And I'm Professor Sherry.
And together we are
the Traveling Professors.
Today, Sherry and I are going to take you on a tour of Carcassonne's ramparts. Now, I have previously done a show on Carcassonne and its fortifications from an attacker's point of view, which includes the north side ramparts, which are particularly mostly the Roman ones that were reconstructed. So this show is about all the rest of the ramparts. The other show is entitled A Walking Tour of Carcassonne Part 1, History and Attacker's View, but it includes the ramparts on that particular side. And here's a little video that I shot as we're getting ready to start the rampart walk.
You're on.
Welcome to the Traveling Professors. I'm Professor Bob, and this is the Trencavel Castle in the center part of the fortification of Carcassonne, the last of the main fortifications. So let's go in and take a tour. Here's our trusty map. So let's see where we're going to go. First of all, in the other show, that covers the ramparts all the way from the edge here of the Trencavel Castle all the way down to right here, which is the Tresor Towers. So what we're going to be doing this time, because this section I just mentioned, that was closed for work. So we're going to go from the opposite side of the Trencavel Castle, and we're going to go this direction along the walls, and then we're going to turn the corner, go by the Church of San Nazaire. We won't go all the way to the other tower. We'll go to right here, and that still leaves us with this section from the Tresor Tower all the way up to this point right here that, as far as I can tell, has not been opened at any time. When I was there, and Sherry and I were there years ago, 2017, we couldn't go the other direction because they were doing work there. So it seems like they shift. You go over one section and they'll work on the other. I would note also that this time, the palace, for the most part, the castle was under construction. You could just see a couple of things, but the museum was closed and most of that was not open. Well, let's get started. Here we are at the bridge crossing over to the Trencavel Castle. Now, when I do my lectures on medieval fortifications, and I use this walled city of Carcassonne as an example, I talk about how it had an exterior wall, it had the inner wall, which we were going to be walking, and then when all that fails, you have the castle right here, and it's pretty formidable. But remember, we're just going to go into some sections of it because most of it is closed. Probably do a show, perhaps the next one, on the castle itself, because when we were there the previous time, it was completely open and we've got all sorts of good pictures. So once you cross the bridge, here's the entrance through the gates. It would have had other gates there back in those days. And then you come into the inner courtyard, and way down here on the end is where the original church chapel was located. And then we turned and entered into the doorway where it said Ramparts. You had two choices. You could go up to the Ramparts, or you could go into the gift shop, which is quite extensive, I might add. That brings you into this opening, which was a two-story section of the castle where they had the Great Hall. So we have to go all the way down to the end, and then go out a little door, and then climb up this flight of stairs to get to the top of the Ramparts. Now we're going to be going up and down quite a bit because the terrain is not perfectly level here. The other ramparts are pretty much the same height, but this one kind of goes up and down, and in a couple of cases you have to go up into one of the towers to get to the next level, and then you'll have to go down a tower to get to the lower level again. Well, here's our first view. Now, this first tower is known as the Visigothic Tower. That's just the name they gave it. It wasn't probably built by the Visigoths, but they called it that anyway. And if you look down from this rampart area, you can see the Church of Saint Guimar down below. Looking back, there's the exit that we used to get out of the castle, so we could come up the flight of stairs, and then you can see the second story windows on that building. And so we're going to head into the Visigothic Tower. Now, some of these have the second flooring, and some of them do not. So here is a little video of the interior of this Visigothic Tower. We've got some other people on the trip as well, but I can't run everybody out of the little building. To get to the next stretch of the rampart, we had to go down and then through a little walled section. So here was Sherry going down the wonderful turret steps, which of course is designed for defensive purposes. You know, if you are attacking, you have to come up and swing your sword around the corner, whereas if you're at the top, you could just run down with your shield and shove them down, or put a rock there, a boulder that's just the right size, and roll it down and clean it out. Now there's a nice little viewing spot through here. So here is the view of the town by the St. Guimares Church. And then here you have, directly below us is the exit from the city onto the road that leads to the odd gate. And by bending out very carefully, you can see the outer defenses. And there's the little area where you go through to get out of the city. Then once we got to the end of the little walkway, you can see our next tower that's up ahead. Wall kind of bends out a little bit, and they have some interesting items, such as one of the cannonballs that they used. It's not a cannonball, actually. That's what they would have thrown out of their trebuchets or their catapults. And there's Sherry to give you some idea of the size. Now we're heading to the Roman Tower. You can see the Roman Tower up ahead. It's pretty obvious. It's different shape than the other medieval towers. And it would have had a second floor on it. And you can see where the posts would have gone in to support the flooring. So here's a look at it on the inside. You can't miss the Romanized construction, even though this is probably a modern rebuild when they're reconstructing parts of the city. You know, they have the red brick mixed in. And so you have these beautiful viewing ports with which you can, of course, shoot at people and throw things down on them as well. And then you look up above and you see the ceiling. And again, there would have been another floor there with access by a ladder in the middle. And then we come out the other side, which we're going to be going to the Bishop's Tower. Before we left, we decided to take some pictures out of the Roman Tower because they have usually a much better view or vision than some of the medieval ports do. This is looking back to the Trencavel Castle, and then this is looking down again to the little town where St. Guimares is located. And you can see how easy it is to focus on an enemy coming up from this direction, particularly since they really need to come up the road. Trying to come up that incline is just suicidal. Then we head over to what is known as the Inquisition Tower, and that's part of the Bishop's Complex. So here's a view from that vantage point, again, looking back towards the Trencavel Palace. So there is the Roman Tower, and you notice that there's a garden back behind it. Well, that's part of what used to be the Bishop's Palace, and here is the Bishop's Palace, which is now the luxury hotel in the city of Carcassonne, where Sherry and I have stayed before, and there's a little video about it. What happened is the bishop owned all this section of land, and when they wanted to build this other section of wall, he donated a fraction of his land in return for building his own tower, which is called the Bishop's Tower. And we're only going to be in the upper part of it, but it has stained glass windows in it as well. And it also included the Inquisition Tower, which was used as a prison. There up ahead of us is the Bishop's Tower, at least the top part of it, where you have the four sides. And here's the interior of it. You can see we have each of these little turrets, give you lots of viewing space and firing space. This is a close-up of one of the arrow loops. And you can go all the way around it. And then you see the view out of one of them. Now, the whole idea of these turrets jutting out is to give enfilading fire. So if you had people attacking those walls, you'd be shooting at them from the side. So you see the outer wall, and then you see we're up here on top on the inner wall, how much taller it is and more difficult it is to contend with. And of course, you're probably asking yourself, just how many people does it require to defend this? Since there's a limited number of spaces where they can actually attack the city from, most of the wall is relatively weakly guarded. You have enough people to keep an eye on things, and so they can call for help and troops can come to them. So you could probably defend this place with 600 or more men. You could probably do it with less. Of course, you also have to understand that the people living in the city, part of their requirement for the protection is to help. So you do have the whole city community that's available for assistance as well. And then here we are getting ready to go out. And as we leave the turret area, we have to go downstairs in the tower to the next level. And here we have a warning sign telling us be careful. Fortunately, I've never seen anybody fall on one of these, but there is a limited space for footing. And at least this one has a handrail. We've been on lots of castles where that does not exist. And if you make a mistake, it could be troublesome. Back to our trusty map to show us where we are located. We are approximately right here on our map, getting ready to make the turn and head to the Orlac Tower. Once you get to this corner, the outer wall is much larger and further away, whereas where we've been, it's been pretty close to the main wall. So let's see what our view is from up here. So here's our tower that we're heading to. As you can see, this didn't exist in the Middle Ages. This is where they have their little amphitheater where they have parties and all sorts of entertainment along here. Now, this used to be in another location, but this is where it is located now. And there's a look coming out of our tower heading to the corner tower here, which corner towers like this are usually much more heavily constructed because they have an importance. They kind of hold this edge, and they're also looking down two areas. They're looking down one direction and they're looking down the other. So these are very important towers. And when we got to that tower, here's the view of the town down below, and then here's a view towards the Church of San Nazaire. And they're doing a significant amount of construction on part of the building. It's almost impossible to get a good view of this church from any place other than the ramparts. Now, after we leave the corner gate and head off to the left-hand side heading to the next tower, this is what you see down below. You see the first set of defenses, and you see that gap between the walls, and that's called the lists, because at one point they actually had houses in there. They were all removed when the area was reconstructed. So you see different versions of fortification. Sometimes it's a wall like you see here. Sometimes it's another tower. This one actually has a sally port where you would charge out if you needed to. Then we head to the next tower, which is the Gate of San Nazaire. From up here you look back and there you can see the two lines of fortifications, the outer wall and the inner wall. And then as you go around the Gate of San Nazaire, you see other places where you can defend, and here's another sally port right along in here, and those would have been gated and blocked up. And here's another view of the Church of San Nazaire, a nice side view of it. We'll eventually go in there and take a little tour, and then here is the main hub of activity out in front of that area. Well, we're on our last legs of the ramparts here as we go around the San Nazaire gate heading towards the next tower, which is the Orlock Tower, which will allow us to go down from that point. And here's a view from one of the windows in the Orlac Tower, looking down on the lists and the initial front fortifications. And then after wandering around in here for a little while, it's time to go down. Well, we got to go down several flights of stairs, so here we have a little better staircase system so it didn't spiral us down. However, once you get to that landing, oh, this is nice steps. We just walk right out. And there's a landing, and that's what it looks like from the bottom. There is a nice rail, but as you can see, after you get down from the first couple of steps, it's a little creaky. But that's okay. It's probably only 30 feet to the ground if you make a mistake. So that was the end of our walking of the ramparts, and quite frankly, it's quite a good exercise, I might add. Then I'll finish with our map. So there's three things where we haven't shown you. One is the inside of the Trencavel Castle. The other is the inside of the Church of San Nazaire. And the other is a walk between first row of fortifications, the first line, so we can walk on the inside of the lists and give you an idea of what it looked like if you were an attacker and you made it through the first line of defenses. What was next? Sherry and I hope you enjoyed the tour. Please come by our YouTube channel at Bob Packett, and please subscribe and leave some comments. Thank you very much. I've been doing podcasting on history for over 15 years. I've got over 4,000 shows, and I've done CDs, which of course can be sent out as USBs. So if you would really like to get more on history for free, then come by my website, as you see here, historyaccordingtobob.com, and see what's there. So thank you very much again.